Hello and welcome to Front Porch Conversations with ACV members. This is one in a series of getting to know our neighbors better, and today my guest is Joe Brack. And Joe, you have somebody with you to introduce too.
Yeah, this is Miss Doty.
Miss Doty.
24/7.
She's on duty and
She is right now, but I should take this harness off of her since she's not working.
well, Doty, welcome as well. And I know that a lot of people have seen her around campus. And sometimes we know people's dogs' names better than we know our own. So I'm going to say yours again, Joe. Well, thank you for joining me for today for this conversation. And we're just going to pretend like we're sitting on the front porch talking and visiting. So would you tell me, Joe, where you grew up and where you were born?
Well, my father worked for the railroad, and I was born in Savannah, but we made our home. We lived 4 or 5 years in Savannah and then moved to Jacksonville and then back to Savannah. So I consider Savannah my home.
Well, it's a pretty town,
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
city.
Yeah.
Yes. What are your memories, earliest memories?
Oh, goodness gracious. Coming up in the 40s and the 50s, there's a lot of pleasant memories. Things weren't as hectic as they are now, and people knew each other. You talk to your neighbors. And that's one of the things I like about ACV is people know each other and they talk to their neighbors. It's kind of like stepping back in time.
And you live on Millsite Lane, is that correct?
That's right.
And so you do have a front porch there.
Absolutely.
And a back one too?
Yeah. A deck.
And there's your window to nature behind you.
I wish.
Yeah. Can you think of a particular fond memory of childhood, something you really enjoyed doing, or?
Well, we lived on the Wilmington River, and actually it wasn't Savannah, it was Thunderbolt, but the city limits and the town limit signs were on the same signpost. And we'd go swimming in the river. And that, as a matter of fact, our uncle threw us in the river and said either swim or drown. So just one of those cases where if you wanted to survive, you swam. But we spent a lot of the summer in and out of the water. And I guess that's part of the reason that attracted me to the Navy and then the flying also. So.
Where did you go to school?
Well, I went to elementary school in Savannah and Jacksonville, kindergarten all in Savannah, and then we moved to Jacksonville. That's 5th and 6th and 7th grade. Then moved back to Savannah. Well, I think, yeah. And then Jenkins High School in Savannah.
And did you join the Navy right out of high school?
I had 1 quarter college, and I knew I wasn't cut out to go to college. I wasn't studying, so yeah, I just it came that time, and I wanted to. You know how you are when you're 18 years old.
I vaguely remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I left they offered an opportunity, and I wanted to fly in the Navy. I always admired naval aviators, and so that was a goal.
And how you went first to boot camp?
Correct.
Where did you go?
Great Lakes, Illinois.
And from there, what did the Navy have you do after that?
Well, when I joined, I was signed up. That guaranteed me aviation machinist mate school, which is working on jet engines. And so after boot camp, went to Memphis, Tennessee. That was almost 6 months. And then I got orders to Port Lodi, French Morocco, to VQ2. And on the way, they changed my orders to go to Norfolk. So it was a flight engineer school, but not real flight engineers, plane captain at the time. So I went through there for the Willie Victor, which the Air Force called EC-121. And went through there. That was 3 months, and then ended up in Port Lodi. But our squadron had moved to Rota, Spain, so we were back and forth the first 5 or 6 months, but we were flying out of Rota, Spain the rest of the tour.
Then from that, what did the Navy?
Well, I got transferred I got transferred close to home at Glencoe, which is Brunswick, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And that was a blimp base at the time and a training facility, training base. And I was there approximately a year and was going to get married, and the wife didn't want to travel. So I got out, and then I made a career in the pulp and paper industry and went back to college at night and was in the pulp and paper industry for 23 years with Brunswick Pulp and Paper. And stayed with them until Georgia Pacific bought them out. They were owned by Scott Paper Corporation and Meade Corporation. And when Scott bought them out, there was 3 or 4 of us that affected that they were offering us an annuity program. And so I didn't want to go in the annuity program because we lost too much money in retirement. So I retired from there, and I had a couple of small businesses going anyway, and we opened a restaurant, and that 24 months of that, and it wasn't, that's some hard work. So we eventually got back into construction management and planning and scheduling, became a planning and did independent consulting, planning and cost control for construction projects and things like that for the next probably 20 years.
Can we go back to the blimps again? I don't know much about blimps. Does the Navy still have blimps?
No, they did away with them in '64. And regrettably, they were good, stable platforms. I wish they still had them. I had always wanted to fly a blimp, but never got the opportunity. But I enjoyed what I did anyway, so.
And you probably learned a lot of valuable skills doing that.
I'm sorry.
You learned a lot of valuable skills and got some training that you might not have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. The military is a great educator. They're really good at that, as some of my friends here in the village can attest to.
Well, I've seen blimps fly over football stadiums and things like that, so all those are privately owned now, is that right?
The Navy had here recently, and I say recent, probably in the last 7 or 8 years, we're doing some experiments with some more blimps. They keep talking about it, but with the speed of transportation now, it's doubtful that they are good, stable platforms. They'd be great for anti-submarine warfare and things like that, and moving large weights over long distances, but I doubt they'll ever go back to it.
Well, it seems to be kind of a pattern in military that we used to have a gentleman lived here who said he joined and served with the cavalry and stayed in the Navy long enough that he worked in missiles.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a comparison of how things do change over time.
And the military, the technology that they have is on the advanced edge. And so you're always working with advanced equipment if you're in the technical fields with any of the military services. And a lot of that technology doesn't ever hit the civilian market for 5 or 10 years. The things that you see in cars these days, excuse me, these things that we take, I don't drive, but GPS and things like that were new technology they were beginning to be when I got out in '87. So it was really weird how much advanced, the technology and the things that are happening now.
I was recently on a driving trip, driving through the mountains in Tennessee, and GPS, they were right there with me on little roads that already looked like a road. And I'm thinking, in other days, I would have never gotten across the mountains, even with roads and probably a road map, but it's amazing. And I didn't lose service. That was the other thing that amazed me.
That is amazing. Yeah, and I get my iPhone out, and of course I can talk to it, and it talks back to me. And I'll go off with friends, and they say, well, tell me how to get so-and-so. So I asked Susie, how did I get here? And the next thing, she's giving us directions, and I said, that was unheard of 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
And that's such a wonderful resource for somebody who has limitations with sight like you do. It gives you a whole way of communicating and being in touch and getting information.
If it works.
If it works. Well, you mentioned your wife didn't want to travel so much. When did you get married? Well,
the first time was in '65. Late '64. And then she passed away, and after 25 years of marriage, a little longer than that. And then Linda, my present wife, we got married in 1990. So we're going on 20 years, 25, 1990, 20 years, 30 years, 30 years next year.
Time flies.
Tell me about it.
And I know you have a daughter. Do you have other children?
Yeah, Lisa. She's a nurse. She lives in Brunswick, Georgia. And I've got two grandchildren. One's finished college last year, and the other one finished college next year, presumably. And they're doing good. I'm real proud of them.
That's great. If you were to give some advice to a young person today, what would you give them? What advice would you give them?
Don't depend on technology. No, I was really surprised here a while back, a year or so ago. I was talking to a few kids. They're like 11 years old. And just a question out of the blue says, well, what did you learn in school today? And I was totally shocked. I said, the first question is nothing, like that.
Of course.
And then I, got, specific. I said, well, do you know your multiplication tables? Well, they don't teach that any longer. And I'm thinking to myself, because you see it, you see it in the stores. They hire these people, and they're behind the registers, and they really don't know how to add, subtract. The educational system in this nation has failed terribly over the last 2 or 3 generations. So, don't depend solely on technology, because it may not always be there.
And at the the worst opportunity, it'll fail, perhaps.
Yeah, and it's shameful. I depend on it a great deal because of my disabilities. And I honestly don't know what I would do. Now Dodie is not a tech. She's no tech. That's very low tech. Mm-hmm. But it's unbelievable her capabilities and what she does. So I'm not totally lost if I lose the technology, but we become slaves to them.
Mm-hmm. How long have you had Dodie?
We'll be together 6 years come August, and she's almost 8 years old. She'll be 8 in August.
And she had to go through quite a rigorous training program.
Oh yeah, they do 2 years. The guide dogs, but I kind of get heat about it, but people say, well, you got a service animal. No, she's not a service animal. She's a guide dog. A service animal only gets a year and a half of training at the most, where a guide dog gets a full 2 years of training.
And then did you get training along with her?
Oh yeah, I had to go. You have to. There's only 19 certified guide dog schools in the United States. And fortunately, I think they're all good, but I think I got one of the better ones, if there's a better one. And I went to Southeastern Guide Dogs in Palmetto, Florida. And the training was excellent. I mean, really excellent. And the thing is that people don't realize that you put your life in these animals' hands. Mm-hmm. And you're totally dependent on them to keep you from getting injured or hurt. And she does a marvelous job. She's my 24/7. I tell people that's my second wife.
When you and I first talked before you moved, one of the things you asked was, could we get somebody to help you, you and Dodie, learn your way around the campus? And Tom, who's filming today, was that person. And I was just amazed at how quickly Dodie learned the path, and you did, and how able you are to get out and be together and get wherever you want to go.
Yeah. She learns fast, and even today she still shocks me at the things she does. Like recently we went to Gainesville and we had to spend the night in a motel, and the people took us, the escort took us down to the room and everything, and then I had to go back to the desk with something. I didn't know where I was at, so I said, okay. So I went to the desk and I was going to ask for help, and I said, no, let me see if she knows her way. And she led me right back to the room. And then we get together with, twice a year I get together with the guys I used to fly with 50 years ago. And we had coming back, I think it was maybe the last trip, I think it was maybe the trip before. And there was three of us, and we stopped in a restaurant in Doty, and they took us to the table. The other two guys got up, and they went somewhere up front. I had to go to the restroom, so the waitress came by and asked her, could she direct me to the restroom? And she did, so we came out, and I said, I'm lost now. I don't know the way back to the table. And so I told her, I says, take me back to the table. And she took me right back, and they weren't even there. They still had not got back to the table. She took me right there. But today it still surprises me some of the things that she's capable of doing.
Well, tell me what attracted you to Advent Christian Village.
Well, yeah, I'm 77 years old, and I knew that with the blindness and death and the age and all that, eventually, with age we deteriorate. And I knew that, eventually I'm going to have to do, something's going to give. I'm going to have to go into assisted living or have more assistance than I do now. I feel like right now I'm fairly independent to a great degree. And so I did a lot of searching, and quite truthfully, I looked at a lot of places. It took me, on the internet, and took probably 6 or 7 months, and then I kept running across Advent Christian Village. And I knew I wanted to come back to the Florida area, and especially the Lake City area, because I had a history with the VA in Lake City and Gainesville. And the care was a lot better than some other VA units I'd used. And so I actually called my visually impaired service coordinator in Lake City and asked her, did she know of anyone that lived here? And she gave me the name of a couple, and I remembered who they were from our peer group. And she had them call me, and I talked to her name's Rosa. And I talked to Rosa, and questioned her at length, really. We talked to probably 45 minutes, an hour. And I guess the final question was, would you recommend Advent Christian Village? Now, I'd already just about been sold on it. And she said, well, we've lived here near 18 years and we wouldn't live anywhere else. And so that was really struck me there. And then when I came and visited, I can't see it, but I could feel it, And then it took another almost 9 months to something to come available that I wanted to get into. So, yeah, I feel fortunate being here, really do.
You had mentioned earlier when we were talking about attending the men's prayer breakfast. What other things have you become involved with here at the village?
Really not as much as I want to, but I'm starting. I'm supposed to go down to the Good Samaritan, and me and Dodie go start visiting there maybe a couple of times a week, and letting her do her thing. She's very personal, and take her out of harness and let her cheer some folks up.
That would be a great.
Yeah, she's a remarkable animal, I tell you.
Well, I think it was a good match for the two of you.
They surprisingly, the guide dog schools do a very good job. They do. I'm not sure about all of them, but they even come to your house and inspect your home and give you a personality trait. And actually took me out in the yard with a harness at 3 different occasions and had me walk to tell what pace I walk at. They even married us up as pace-wise, which sometimes we don't always walk at the same pace, and especially if we get in heavy traffic. She slows down, and she's got her head on a swivel. And if I'm in traffic, I want to move on, and we have a battle going on. I'm trying to get off the road, and she's trying to keep us out of trouble.
Are there any things that you have on a bucket list that you want to do that you haven't accomplished? It sounds like you've accomplished a lot.
I had a lot of things on the bucket list, but the limitations anymore. Now is the main thing is seeing friends and being with friends, being with family, and enjoying people, enjoying life. And, it's remarkable. You mentioned, me coming here and all, and then you're getting a hold of Tom, and Tom and I have such similar backgrounds. It was almost like we were brothers. I mean, there's so many things, and we flew the same type of aircraft, that we are in the sister squadrons. It's just truly remarkable. I mean, I think it was ordained. I don't think this is one of those happenings that just, And then meeting some other guys, Terry Whip, for example, and he flew the same type. I was just truly amazed. I probably could have went searching and couldn't have found that anywhere else if I was looking for it.
Well, and that's why I think conversations like this are so important, is that people watching you may find somebody else who has a similar experience than you, or maybe you used to live in Savannah, or, there's just so many ways that our lives intertwine. And
it's also strange that TC over in the office, she and I were related, and Jackie and I related through, we traced our genealogy and come to find out we're related to each other. So,
oh my goodness.
It blows me away when I think about it.
Well, thank you so much, and to Dodie too. Dodie, thank you for joining us, and Joe, it's been a pleasure visiting with you this afternoon.
It's been my pleasure.
And please watch again for the next announcement of another Front Porch Conversation. Have a good day.